Yep. Yeah, we're ready.
Perfect. So I'm going to share my screen. Let me know if you can. Looks good. Looks okay. Can you see the slideshow?
Yep, good to go.
Perfect. Hi. So I'm Pablo Borchi, marketing manager for Music Cities Events. I'm here in Mexico City. So today's session is about converting gatekeepers with music PR campaigns. So I'll share with you like everything about the session, and then I'll talk a little bit about myself. Yes. So this is what we're gonna see in the session. So a little intro about myself. Then I'm gonna tell you a couple of examples of how you can use a PR campaign to convert gatekeepers. Then I'm gonna give you like a structure of how you can run your own campaign, like how I would do it, that you can use it as a reference. Then I'm gonna give you some ideas to do alternative PR strategies, and then some other ideas of like what do you need to pay attention to when hiring a PR office. So about me, this is like a little bit of my work. So I have some experience in PR and also in music journalism. So I was the editor of Cassette Blog, which is for a long time. It's a website that used to cover all of the Latin electronic scene in the 2010s. So there I used to do releases, scene reports, and a little bit of PR work. Then I've also worked a lot as a music journalist. I've done pieces for Water and Music, Remezcla, Worldwide FM, Sounds and Colors, like lots of outlets. And then also I've been working in PR campaigns. I was working at the office of Movida Música, which is the Latin branch of the Latin PR branch of the managers of Miami Horror, Hernitude, Frank Moody. And I was also doing independent PR work for these artists that are more in the Latin electronic music scene, no? So first things first, why would you run a PR campaign? Like now you can reach your audiences with social media, you can do digital marketing, you can use Instagram, TikTok. So why would you run a PR campaign? Like things have changed in the past years. And the definition is, I really like this one from Seth Godin, which is like a marketing guy that says, public relations is the art of telling your story to the right people in the right way. So for me, PR campaigns, some people use them to get validation, like, yeah, I want to be featured in Billboard, Rolling Stone, so they get like a good reputation. But I think it's more about building your project's narrative and also converting key gatekeepers. So that's the focus that I would put with PR campaigns. It's not about getting like big audiences or getting to a certain place, but like choosing the people that you want them to become like your project's ambassadors. So I wanna like do an example of how this would work with two projects. So one is Nick Leon. So Nick Leon is this DJ from Miami. He's from the global bass scene, this scene that I've been covering for many years, and he's had some really good success in the past 3 years, like with reviews in mainstream electronic music outlets. So for me, his case study is very interesting because I've seen lots of these artists like come out, and they always, even if they start being featured in these mainstream electronic music outlets, the narrative about them is always like how they are exotic or how they're working with sounds from the ghetto. And with Nick Leon and the label where he's publishing his music, Trata Tracks label, uh, something is being different. Like he's being described as the next Hessel Audio, which is like an important electronic music label from Europe. And also he's getting really cool shows in avant-garde electronic music festivals like Sonar, Primavera Sound. So something is happening beyond what you would expect with this type of artist. And I started doing some research on why is this happening, and I found some really cool insights. So what I found is that a lot of what's happening with Nick Leon, it's because of the work of the PR agency that he hires normally on a regular basis. It's Done Creative Agency. So this is quite a small agency, 2 people, and they're really focused on outlets like Resident Advice or Mixmag, like really electronic music. They have a really good network of DJs. So the process, to position Nick Leon, is that First, they started sending the music to DJs, trying to get the track played on clubs. And this PR agency, besides their PR work, they have a music blog untitled 909, which is this one that you can see here. And I think their blog is quite cool, and they feature lots of artists that are not from the exotic electronic music scene, but like mainstream electronic scene. So that gives them good reputation to recommend music to DJs. Like they trust their taste in music. So that's the first step of what they did. Then as Nick Leon's music started to get some traction, they started to work a lot on scene reports about what was happening in Miami. He's organizing parties, and they starting to talk a lot about the hype of these parties. Even if they're normal, they're not like super massive parties, but they were like putting a focus on how Miami is coming back to life. And also Miami, a lot of guys from the reggaeton scene live in Miami. So also there's always a reference about how he's in the middle of what's trending now in the music industry. And then something that happened with Nick Leon is that he had a production credit in Rosalia's latest album, which other DJs from this global-based music scene had, but they didn't get the same amount of hype around their production. And also they were always cataloged like exotic electronic music. But with Nick Leon is different. He's getting reviews in Pitchfork, like more mainstream outlets. And what I see is that the way they are approaching the campaign and how they're pitching outlets is that they're not using these words like African music, big drums, Latin, curious. Instead, they're using this type of narratives, like the one that I'm putting in at the bottom of the paragraph, which is from a review in Pitchfork. A high-stepping bass line that's more than a little reminiscent of Robin S. classic Show Me Love remix, whose Korg M1 organ preset Beyonce recently dusted off for Breaking My Soul. So what they're doing here is that they're making the outlet link the music to mainstream artists, and what they're giving you, like with this paragraph, is that they're giving you the picture that he could be working in a studio with those type of sounds, with those type of artists. So it's very different. And I think this is a really exciting case because Nick Leon doesn't have viral numbers. His numbers online are really shy. So everything that's happening around him, I think it has a lot to do on this PR work. And that's like a cool lesson of how you conquer the right gatekeepers. So first DJs, then journalists that are interested in scene reports, and then mainstream outlets. So I want to share now another case study, which is from a project that I've done myself, that will give you some other ideas of how can you like do these PR campaigns and which type of people you can target. So this is a band called Los Aptos. So in Mexico and in the US, there's a very big scene called Corridos Tumbados, which is a mixture of folk music from Mexico, like polka type of music, and West Coast gangsta rap attitude. So maybe you've heard of Peso Pluma, which is like a super big artist. This is the type of artist. So a couple of years ago, I was approached by a label to do some PR work to try to position Los Aptos in the Mexican music industry, like reviews, etc. And Los Aptos are like, they're not so gangsta, they are more like the sad part of this music, which is called sad serreño. So what happened with this project is that Mexico City's music outlets, they are not so fond of like corridos tumbados or like Mexican folk music. There's a lot of identity struggle between the Mexico City and the other parts of the country. Specialists in the music industry in the city are like really into rock. They look to the Europe, to the US. So they kind of struggled accepting, especially in the alternative music radio, like things that come from other cities or that sound too folky. So with Los Aptos, the approach that I decided to make is to position them as bedroom pop. So people that normally pick up on my releases, well, my PR work, they know that I work a lot with Latin artists working like with innovations, like it's a little bit of world music, but with new sounds. So my focus was to tell Los Aptos is a lo-fi bedroom pop, but with this influence from corridos tumbados. So it made it very like relatable to them because they really like bedroom pop. But they also like felt curious about like this innovation using corridos tumbados, and I had a lot of success. I had some really good reviews. I had one in Argentina in a rock outlet that they never cover corridos music, Remezcla, etc. And what I saw is that it was adopted by the industry. Like first we got really good playlist placement, and then whenever they were pitching them stuff, it was being featured in playlists, billboards, and now they're like one of the poster boys of the Sat Sierreño style. Like you got Peso Pluma, Natanael Cano, a couple of them, and then the next year these guys are like headlining it. So that was really cool. And those are like two ideas of how you can like it's not so much about numbers, but like who do you want to convert. So in this case it was like playlist curators, by giving Los Aptos like the validation that they're part of the alternative music scene in Mexico City. So now I'm gonna move forward to how I run a PR campaign, which can give you a reference of how to run it yourselves, or what would an agency would do if you hire them. So the elements is like do press release, the pitch email, then a campaign dashboard, which I'm going to show you. Then to do constant research, have a database, and then 4-6 week push. And for 4-6 week push, it's like normally you would send like 2 to 3 weeks before the release, you would send the first emails, then follow up on the week of the release, and then just follow up maybe 1 week later and see how you're doing with numbers. And like the most you can spend on it is like 6 weeks to get the results that you would expect. So a couple of notes for the press release. There's this notion that I really like in music journalism and just ethnomusicology, that people only like the music that they can understand. So it's not that they don't like some type of music, they just don't have the tools to get it. So whenever you talk about the music, make them taste the music. I really like to say stuff like he's the child of Notorious B.I.G. and the Strokes, and then like you can really make a picture of it. And then most of music journalists are nerds in regard with the history of music, so I really like to position the artist like in the history of the music. So for example, with Los Aptos, I could talk about indie music in Latin America for the past 50 years and put them there if I want to target Latin alternative music outlets. But if I'm going to more like folk music, Mexican folk music outlets, I would try to put them in the timeline of Tigres del Norte, like more folky bands. And then something that I try to do is give them like a reason why they shouldn't miss on this release. And I always try to include two of these elements. Just a second. So maybe that it's part of a social trend, maybe that it's so viral that you can't miss it, it's exotic, it's an innovation of the genre, maybe it's important for the outlet. So you're gonna see it in the next couple of pages. So this is how a press release could look like. Simple, like title, press release, the date that you're releasing it, then like a small description, then the links to the song, then another description using these elements, and that's it. Like no big thing. A link to the pictures, link to the socials, and then you can put another picture at the end. But like keep it simple, don't worry too much. I think press releases never look really cool, so don't worry about it. Like it's more about the information. And then I decided like to translate the press release so you can get a feel of how it looks like. So I'm gonna read it. Los Aptos are one of the acts to follow in the Sat Sierreño movement. Their first LP, Lluvia y Sol, earned them very positive reviews from the Latin alternative scene, and incursion in numerous editorial playlists for their unique style of transforming the melodies of Mexican bedroom indie pop through the filter of corridos tumbados. A couple of months after that explosion, Los Aptos returned with one of their characteristic covers from their early days. In this case, they infused their sound of enamored acoustic guitar into La Canción, originally by Bad Bunny and J Balvin. Los Aptos is a sad sirreño band that creates love songs with incredible melodies. Their style takes on the vibe of Junior H and Tercer Elemento, but with a very special touch of indie lo-fi that connects with the vibe of artists like Cuco or Ed Maverick. Their main audience is located in Mexico City. Last November, they released the track Enamorado, which went viral and reached the top 70 on iTunes without a label. It currently has 13 million plays on YouTube and more than 6 million on Spotify. Much of their success is attributed to Juan, the singer's TikTok account, where he occasionally uploads covers of Bad Bunny, Nathaniel Cano, or Junior H that go viral. So I highlighted some words that I also highlight in the press release so that people just kind of relate to that. So I mentioned Latin alternative scene, although if someone else doing the PR campaign might never use that scene as a reference. Then editorial playlists, so like, hey, they're getting success, Mexican bedroom indie pop, then corridos tumbados. Then I do a lot of name dropping, like his music has the vibe of Junior H and Tercer Elemento, which are big artists. And then I use these ones, Cuco and Ed Maverick, which are like trendy indie artists, but really big audiences, but very innovative. And then like viral numbers, 13 million plays, and then more name dropping like Bad Bunny, Nathaniel Cano. So that's kind of an example of how I would do this press release. And then I'm gonna show you another example. So this is the one that I would use for Miami Horror and Movida Música. So Miami Horror is this Australian band that has a very good following in Mexico City. So I was working on their release for the 10-year anniversary of their debut album, and we were releasing like one song per month. So it was becoming very repetitive. So we had to figure out cool stuff. So this is like, just so you see the format, it's very similar to the other one, but in this one, for the release, they included a cover. The new track in this release was a cover, and we already had pitched all of the outlets about this album for a long time. So for this one, I asked the band to create a special about the covers that they really like. So they created a special, and we included it in the playlist. And when we pitched to outlets, we told them, hey, they can come to the radio station and put the songs about their favorite covers and talk about them. And it worked really well. They went to 2 radio stations, they got an outlet doing the feature, and it worked really well. So now let's move to the pitch email. So some ideas is like, make it feel personal. I know that you gotta reach a lot of people, but if you can tell something like that feels more personal, take the time, it really pays off. If you know the person, like, hey, we met this time, I saw that you did an article about this and it was really cool. Like that work, it really transpires to the other person. Also, make it short, go straight to the point, and then always offer like, yeah, please review the track, but we're open to more ideas. So maybe a premiere, an interview, a playlist. And I really like to offer special about scenes. So if you have like this hip hop artist from Brazil, maybe I'll offer to the radio station that he can do a special about the trending hip hop artists from Brazil. Or maybe another thing is to offer a special experience. So for Miami Horror, we did a listening session, and Miami Horror prepared like postcards for everyone attending, and they sent them like free beer, like a couple of beers, so they could spend the listening session like drinking their beer and having their postcard. So that worked really well. So for example, this is an email that I did to Remezcla that was successful. So you get the vibe. So I'm gonna read it. So, hi Alexis, I hope you're doing great. This is Pablo Borchi from Mexico City. I'm both a music journalist and a PR assistant for music releases. I'm writing to introduce myself and to pitch to you a premiere for an upcoming release from Los Aptos, a Sierreño band from Indiana that is having really good streaming numbers. Then I go with like the press release. And then I would like to see the possibility of having Remezcla do a premiere for Mi Amor a couple of days before the release of the album. Additionally, I offer myself to interview Juan and do a profile on the release in case this is useful to reduce the workload on other writers of the team. So in my particular case, because I do a lot of music journalism, I always use that tool. Like, hey, I can work on the scene report, I can work on the article, and it's been very helpful many times. But if you don't do it, don't worry. Like, it's not mandatory. And this was successful. We got a cover story in Remezcla, and this is very important for placement. This outlet indie pop scene, because Remezcla is very familiar on this type of corridos tumbados scene. So I'm gonna keep moving forward. So this is an example. I'm gonna give you an example of how you can run your own PR. Let me see. Just want to check how you run your own campaign. So the campaign dashboard is like just an Excel file where you follow up with every email that you send. You have an overview of the number of outlets, gatekeepers that you want to pitch. For a campaign, I would normally aim for 10, like not pitch, but to get results from 10. And then be strategic with outlets. Like if you have two main magazines that you know could cover your release, maybe you only pitch to one of them. And if they don't answer, then you move to the next one. And especially if you're going to be pitching them releases so often. So this is an example. For example, this is like a French electronic music group called Baja Frecuencia. So first we have like a DJ promo list. Then we have outlets. Then for this one, I thought it was gonna be cool to send to dance crews. And then we have radio and DJs, but you can be creative. And I always like to use a color code. So whenever I send an email, I'll put it in blue, then I'll put the date. If they post the article, I'll turn it to light blue, put the link. Orange is like warm lead, like they're interested. Then red might be like they're not interested. And then purple might be like, yeah, we want to do it, but not on this campaign, or there's something to address. So when you're looking through the file, you can always see like, oh, this stands out, and you follow up on it. As I mentioned before, like I would send the first email maybe 2 weeks in advance to the release, or 3. Then on release day or 1 day before the release, and that week, I would follow up maybe 5 days later, 7 days, like 1 week, and then do another follow-up maybe 4 days later. And then follow-ups become really simple, like, hey, did you see my email? And a lot of the times, if you know an outlet and they didn't answer your email, but you have their WhatsApp number, like send them a message, like they're really busy, and don't worry about it. Like they are used to that. Just be really short, do it very professionally, so it doesn't feel like they put a lot of emotion into rejecting you. If the timing is right, they will do it. And then one very important thing for PR campaigns is your database and research. So you're going to do your first campaign, research is going to take you a lot of time. But if you save it, then you'll have it for the next campaign. And then 1 year later, you're going to have a really cool database. So the way that I go about it is that I look where the artists that I really like are playing, are being showcased. And I do a mix, like artists that I really like, yeah, big artists, not so let's search for Beyonce, but it's gonna be hard for a smaller artist to get a campaign to be featured in a big outlet. So I would also look for artists in my scene, like who's the immediately bigger artist that is getting some reviews, and I look for them, and then I might even put like in the pitch, like, hey, I saw that you did an article about this artist, and I think that you'd be interested in my review because we're from the same scene, same city, etc. Then don't be shy to ask contact information for editors, music journalists directly from LinkedIn. There's this cool website called rocketreach.com, and you can use it to find emails from LinkedIn. You can like use the test, the free test, etc. And then very important to keep all the contacts in a bigger database. And this is an example of how my database looks like. It obviously has lots of contacts, but this is just like, so you see the main categories. So I have DSPs. A lot of these contacts, I got them directly from LinkedIn. Like, hey, I see that you're an indie music editor on Spotify. I have a release that I want to pitch to you. Can I send you an email? Yeah, sure. Then television, radio, then some key journalists, then dance crew, online radio, podcast. And then I always like to separate the outlets in big, medium, and small, because if you get a good list of small or medium outlets, you can eventually move them to a particular list where you send them emails and they post the content immediately. Like, you're gonna realize that some smaller outlets almost post anything that you send to them. So you can, instead of wasting energy on doing personal follow-ups, you can just send them the email, know that they're gonna post about it, and that's it. And then you can add other tags, like, for example, if they like certain type of music, if they're more like new releases, classics. So it's easy to search. And also, in my case, it was very important to do a DJ promo list, but I'm going to talk about it in the last part of the presentation. So just the structure of how to do the whole PR pitch. First 6-week push, you send an email 2 weeks in advance, send a reminder, send a second reminder, aim to get 10 outlets to cover it. So I would consider one being featured in a playlist, one being featured in an article, one being played in the radio, but like, hey, this is the song, new song. Don't be shy to circle back to them, make it quick, professional, and don't worry if they never answer. Like, that's it, no problem. And so moving on the last part of the presentation, what I really like about PR strategies, like to get people into your project, is to do alternative things that go beyond like, hey, just put my music on your website. So one tool that I use a lot is scene reports. And for example, for artists in Kirklees, I think that's a tool that they could really use. Because, for example, for someone in Mexico City that doesn't really know where Kirklees is, you could like make a reference about nearby cities that have big bands. No, like the scene here is like the local answer to what happened with the Arctic Monkeys or what happened with the Kaiser Chiefs. So, for example, I did some work with an artist from Brazil, and he had lots of influences from Caetano Veloso and Joao Gil, and I was able to put him in certain places with like a scene report about artists influenced by Tropicalia. Or for example, in Tigre Sounds, this one on the right, I did like a coverage about 6 bands from this really small city in Mexico City, and at the top of them, I featured Pijama, which is the band that I was working with. And it was like their biggest coverage until that date. You can also offer playlists. For example, if you release a song that it's like a new version of an older song, maybe you can offer a playlist that the artist is making a special playlist for the outlet of all of the cool versions of that song, something like that. Special radio shows, for example, the one that I did with Miami Horror about doing a special about their favorite covers. Then another idea that you can do, it all takes time. But for example, I'm thinking of a band from Kirklees, Conk, that they're a brass band. You could, it's very interesting to learn more about the brass band scene, but not many people know about it. So I would do, even if it's like just for a season, like maybe just 3 cents, a newsletter about brass bands in the UK. So you give some information to journalists like, oh, this is all happening. You also let them know about these other bands, and you always position your band at the top. And it also helps you network. Like if you're doing a newsletter about your really small scene and you're getting people interviewed in your own newsletter, and you're sending it to outlets, like it has like a bigger purpose. For example, I always get approached by this really small electronic cumbia band from a small city in Mexico. Like every month I get an email from them, and I really like their music, but like that's it. I only like put it on an article once, and that was it. if they did this kind of idea of like a newsletter where they showcase all of the bands of their small city, and they do interviews and they talk about bigger things, it's easier to cover them. Then there's other ideas that you can do to keep converting people, is that it's expensive to hire a PR agency. So you could maybe team up between 3 or 4 similar bands and then say, okay, we're going to become a collective, and for the next 4 months, we're going to have our own PR office. So it could be one of our friends, or it could be someone that we hire, but the PR office is going to work for all of us. So this month, the focus is on this band, but we're also giving information about the other ones. And then next month, we're going to target the release of the next band. And I think that that kind of union, bands sometimes don't make much use of it, and it's very strong. Then another strategy, this is very funny, but it works, is to do playlists. Like if you're a band, you can do playlists on your Spotify profile, and then you can look for other people doing playlists. Like you look on Spotify, where is your song being featured? And then the guy doing that playlist, you can try to look to their user online, find their contact, and tell them, hey, I saw that you featured my song on your playlist. I can feature your songs on my playlist, especially if you see that other bands are doing a playlist. And then there's like this playlist community, and that helps the algorithm as well. And it's a lot of work, no? But it pays off. And then one more is offering experience for journalists. Like I always think about this small band in Mexico that they pitch me their songs every month, and then I say like that's it. I don't want to see their emails anymore. But if they would offer something different, I would be interested. So you can take as a reference what we did with Miami Horror, that sending them a couple of beers and postcard and doing a listening session. It was all online, no? It was COVID times. But for example, this is something that I've been doing in Mexico City, which is like a music tour for about cumbia, which is a style from Latin America. And what we do is that sometimes we grab one band that we want to showcase, and they come with us with the tour. So we go to a couple of venues, and then in a record store, we do a listening session. And they, at the end of the listening session about cumbia, we say like, oh, we have this band here in the tour with us. Hey, come and play some songs. And we never tell anyone that the whole experience is an excuse to do a networking event for the band. But then they go to a studio to play some music, and they say like, oh, this guy played great, how I didn't know about it. And we did this with a cumbia band from Lithuania, and it worked really well. They became huge friends with a guy from the radio and from a music outlet, and then they got cool reviews of their shows. And then before we finish this presentation, so what I hear a lot when I talk with friends that are musicians, they say like, I hired a PR campaign and it wasn't worth it. And I think this happens when you have the wrong expectation of what a PR campaign can do to you. So you say like, hey, I want to hire a PR campaign and get on the main outlets. Like I want to get on television and I'm going to be featured on, I don't know, big outlets. But the numbers don't reflect it. Like you go to hundreds of meaningless interviews, and then your streaming numbers don't change. And I think that the focus is wrong. So to solve that feeling, first, think of your PR projects as a long-term thing. So it's not that you hire one campaign and that's it. Like it's better to have like a smaller PR team that you can work for every release every couple of months, and they think of it as a longer strategy. Like what do we do with what fun stuff do we do for this release? What fun stuff do we do for the next one? This release we're gonna position us as an indie band. On this one we're gonna position us as a political band, etc. Also work with PR agencies that work with artists that are part of your scene. For example, if CIDE, try to find a PR agency that is working on, that is good with those kind of contacts. Then when you become bigger, you can scale. And then if you want to enter into another country, then find a PR agency that can work with those contacts, like be specific. And then when you hire a PR agency, remember, it's not about like becoming a famous, bringing numbers. It's about converting the key stakeholders. So who do you want to convert? I want to convert the bookers of this festival. So the PR campaign might even not even show on the media. Like maybe you just need someone to send emails to festival bookers and get them to hear your song, or I want to be featured on the radio, so I become part of that scene. Then let's find a PR agency that has good results with that outlet, and that would be it. So thanks for staying with me. I can send you the presentation if you want the references, and I'm happy to hear if you have any questions.
Thank you so much for that presentation, Pablo. There was so many good insights. I've learned so much about PR campaigns with this, so thank you. So yeah, I think we can check with our attendees if there's any questions from them. Or maybe I can start by asking you some questions generally, and then we'll see how the Q&A goes. But so you said a little bit about how, working with PR agencies from your scene might help a lot more. Do you also recommend that the artists like set up straight up goals with the PR agencies, or is it more that the artists kind of let the PR agency do their thing? Because there is a lot of this back and forth, like, oh, the PR agency knows their thing, so they'll come in and they'll do it, they'll know how to best do it. Or are there like certain goals that the artist should aim to reach and communicate with the PR agency early on?
I
What would
think it's a mix of both.
Okay.
You need to trust them. So because PR work, it never offers like results as such. Like you hire their work, not their results as such. Like you hire them because of their reputation, but nothing guarantees that they will get certain outlets. So I would do like a proper call with them, checking objectives. Like I want to be featured here, I want to feature that. Let the agency go back, bring back feedback on how they would do it, what's the focus that they want to do, and then let them do their thing. But do circle back on them, like, hey, how are the results going? Because if they feel the pressure, like, oh, we have to deliver, they're gonna be more diligent. And PR agencies are always overworked, like they always have too many projects. So it's good that they're on the top of mind.
Okay.
Yes.
And then another thing would be, how can someone try and use PR agency as a route to music export? Like is that an opportunity over there? And how would you recommend someone does it? Or do you have to be of a certain stature to start thinking about getting PR agencies outside of your scene or even from a different country to do this work for you?
Okay, so I think for export, it's good if you build the narrative of your project around something bigger than your music. So bigger, like part of a scene, of a social process. And for that, you can use local PR agencies. Just even if the articles aren't featured in big outlets, but like when you search online about the band, you find like a scene report, art reviews that link the band to like a wider process, so that even if your numbers are not that big, people that hear about what you do understand that it's important to pay attention to. And then I think that if you're trying to get into another territory, for example, if you're trying to get into Latin America, I think it would be great if you know a Latin person in the UK that is involved in the scene, because it's all about networks, the PR. So they could give you insights. Maybe they can run the first PR campaign, like a very shy PR campaign, and then that will let them discover who would be the right agency to hire. But if you're going to a new territory, probably it's good to hire a local agency. Unless depends also like where are people getting their information from. So for example, here in Latin America, we pay attention a lot to what's happening in the US and in Europe, and there are some European Latin music outlets. So some of them are running PR campaigns in Latin America, and they're being successful. because they're the guys from this bigger magazine that they have a good reputation about taste, covering cool stories.
Got it. Yeah, that makes absolute sense. Thank you.
Mhm.
We have another question. Is email the best form of communication with key gatekeepers?
I think so, but if it's yeah, I think so, because people are gonna like take their time to check your information. But if they don't answer, I would send them a WhatsApp message if you have the phone, or even a heads up like, hey, I sent you an email. This is from this band. Let's go for it.
Got it. Thanks, Pablo. If no one has any more questions, I think we will move towards closing this session. And next week, we have someone really special. We actually have Lillian, also from Mexico City, who's now based in the UK. Thank you for that connection, Pablo, joining us, and she's going to be talking about artist DNA. So it's going to be a little bit different. It's going to be workshop style. So you will all be moved to the screen with us, and we will all be working on our artist DNA with her through workbooks and through her knowledge. We will all go back home with something more tangible, and I think that'll be really exciting to work on together. So please go back to the Kirklees Music Ecosystem Network group and sign up for that session. Thank you so much for your time, Pablo. I will share your presentation once you send me a PDF with the group. And I will also be posting this recording so you have everything you need to build your next successful PR campaign. Thank you, everyone. I hope you all have a lovely day. Bye bye.
Bye.